if anybody has questions. Okay, there's a microphone, there's a woman coming with a microphone for you.
How can we help more to make sure that women have the same rights as men?
Go for it.
Well, one of the things we've been trying to do for a very long time is to pass the Equal Rights Amendment.
Yeah.
And there has been a bill passed. I'm sorry. There has been a bill filed this year, and it's not moving. So we're going to have to do that again. But being aware of that and maybe emailing your legislators that it's time to pass the Equal Rights Amendment would be good. And I have to just say, because I'm an older woman, and I am just so proud of young women who have stood up and said, we're not going to take the status quo anymore. We want to be treated as equals in the workplace. And we're going to demand to be treated that way. I think I was kind of raised to think that you just kind of go along, and the way to get ahead was to flatter men, and occasionally they would give you the crumbs, and we were grateful for that. And I'm embarrassed to say that now. But like I said, I am so proud of the young women who are just standing up for themselves and saying, I'm not going to take this anymore. We are just as smart and just as committed and probably even have bigger hearts for our communities, and we're going to be taken seriously. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to add to that. Yeah. I want to add real quickly to that, because where you are right now, that you can do things in your school too. So the legislature and changing laws is critical, but there are a lot of adults out there who are in a new terrain when someone comes to them and says, you seem to only call on boys, or you seem to not ask us what our opinion is, or every time there's a project head, you do something. So your eyes and ears can be active now to make sure that those opportunities that you have now can be seized, and you can do it in a nice way. You can do it in a way to learn. When I was really young as a lawyer, someone who was very much in high esteem in our community said something that I thought was sexist, and I had a couple different approaches to that, and the one I took was to pull him to the side afterwards and just sort of tell him that I kind of thought that wasn't right. But I also thought he was worthwhile enough that if I explained it to him, he might be willing to change. And he was, and he did, and it made a huge difference in both our lives going forward.
Also, never take down. Stand in what you believe, and if you feel that you're being treated differently, say something. Never back down. You be strong in what you believe in, and say, hey, no, that's not right. So be that strong woman. Be that strong little girl that's gonna be that strong woman.
I just wanted to congratulate the young lady for being the first one to stand up and ask a question.
More questions? In the back there?
When did you guys feel in your gut that you could change something, like, anywhere?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part. When did you?
Feel in your gut. When did you guys?
You could change. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a really strange experience to answer that. When I was in high school, I was head cheerleader, and I had a run-in with the coach because we were having this big, huge game, and it was filled to the gills, and fire code said you couldn't let anybody else in. And I just insisted that that wasn't fair. These people had come all this long way to the game, and so I stood up to the coach. Well, he was right, of course, but what was so interesting about that is he was pretty rough on me and, and didn't do what I thought should be done. But that night, after the game, he called me to apologize. And at that point, I realized that if you stand up for what you believe, and sometimes we may not be absolutely right, but you will gain respect. And that was an eye-opener for me, that I could change something.
I guess for me, maybe I had a totally different kind of upbringing or experience. I always felt that I could do something different and something positive because people, my community just kept telling me, you can do something different. You can get your way, make your way out of this community, and you can come back and help make a difference. So it's almost as though, even if when I didn't believe in myself, I had so many other people who believed in me, and for the parents and for the friends and for the uncles and for the aunts and the teachers, we have got to continue to send positive messages to women and young women and little girls, because they can do it, and that's what you've got to do. You got to believe. Sometimes even when it's tough, when people are telling you, you're not good, you're not that, you're not this, you can do it. And if they don't tell you that, just remember, Deborah Campbell told you you could.
Yes, they're in the turquoise shirt. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Aiden, can you bring her the microphone?
What's the hardest thing you've done in your job?
Being tased. It hurts.
Applying for my job was the hardest thing that I've done, and it wasn't for the city manager's job. It was for the director of a planning department in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't know if you know about the field of planning, but it is a male-dominated field. It's a lot of developers and builders and contractors and just men, just a lot of men. And so I just did not think that the Charlotte community, and even though I was the assistant director at the time that I applied, I didn't think that they would accept, number one, an African American, number two, a female to head that type of a department. And a mentor of mine, he was a county manager, he said, these opportunities do not come up very often, not just for females, but African Americans as well. Your position, take the risk, take the chance. And I did, and I was blessed to be able to get that position and hold it for 10 years.
There are two things that come to mind for me on hardest part of job. One goes back to that judicial code of conduct, and as a judge, I have to be more reserved, which means I have to shut up a lot more. I can't tell everybody what's deep down in my soul, because I don't want them to think I'm not going to be fair when they come. When people come in front of me, it's about that family. I'm a family court judge, and so it's really important that they know I just want to hear about them, and I don't care what's down in here because I'm hearing about them. But that's hard, because the way I got there was telling everybody what I thought. And then on the job, because I am in family court, I have to make some really hard decisions, and those are really complex adult decisions. But that is something that I swore I would do, and I was never anywhere near ready to take that responsibility on in the first 10 years of my profession as a lawyer. But I woke up one day and went, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And sometimes I have to make really hard decisions between two bad choices. My favorite day is when somehow these people don't get along, but I know they're both gonna be okay and good, because then that's a choice between good and better, and I sleep easier then. But when I know that the choices are just between bad and worse, or between lack of resources, that if this family had a whole lot more of everything, maybe it would have been different, those are kind of hard. And we have to, in our attorneys and professions, take time, like moments like things like today, to find the joy to replenish us when we have hard jobs like that.
And mine is a little similar. The hard part for me about my job is actually voting on bills, because so frequently they're a mixed bag. There are good things in the bill and there are bad things in the bill, and trying to weigh the good things with the bad things and figuring out, is this a yes or a no? Because you don't get to say, I want 3 from column 1 and 2 from column 2. It's, you just get to vote aye or no. And there are a lot of times I kind of like to push maybe, and I make mistakes. So that's real unfortunate. But you know, I wish that we had a more. The one thing that surprises me, and I think it gets worse with time, is that we're not as deliberate as I would expect that we would have been. And 5 years ago when I first started, we had a lot of committee meetings, and people would come and they would want to educate us before we took a vote. And now that gets to be less and less the case, where we get a bill in the morning, we're in committee in the afternoon, and we're on the floor voting that evening. And I wish there were more time for, particularly to hear from the people that are going to be impacted by the laws we pass.
Patsy, did you want to answer?
Well, you know, I hate to be a downer. It's not so much what was hardest, but what was saddest for me in all of the years was going to the funeral of a student who had been killed in the military service, and then going to that service and with the family and all the military honors, and just feeling what a loss that was to all of us, and what a wonderful young man he was. And it just was, that was very sad. It was very sad.
All right, we need a positive question.
Thank you.
Here in the front. Do we have another? She's coming.
What is your most memorable moments in your job? Like your favorite times during your job?
Okay, every now and again, I get to ask a question that changes the outcome of a bill, and and that's a real thrill. I serve in the minority, which means I don't get to pass a lot of legislation, but I've been able to ask some pointed questions that exposed problems with legislation, and that's a really good day.
I guess the most memorable for me, and if I could, I'll give you 2 examples. One is, I feel it is extremely important for me to be a mentor to others. And my most memorable and proudest moments are when my mentees are presenting or getting an award or just being them. I just see them grow into who, because when I mentor, do you. Don't do me, don't do your sister, don't do whomever, do you, find you. So seeing them grow and develop is hugely gratifying for me. The second part is when you are in the field of urban planning and you're helping to shape a community, when I would drive down the street sometime in Charlotte and look at the buildings that I spent a whole lot of time negotiating with the developer and just seeing it come to fruition, especially like the whole transit system, the light rail system that's in Charlotte, that was extremely, extremely gratifying for me.
Good job.
Thank you.
You know, mine, as a teacher, my favorite moments are always, like Deborah said, when I see students who have been successful and they're doing wonderful things. But my most memorable thing that comes to my mind was constituency service as a state legislator that I didn't know that I could even do. But we got a request from a person who was in a jail far away from his family. And they called my office to see what we could do to help them get moved to a jail that was much closer to their home so the families could visit. And I didn't even know this was a thing. So, and it was my legislative assistant who helped do that. But being in the position and being able to use what power I had to do that for another human living being was very, very rewarding and very memorable.
For me, can you hear me? Okay. For me, it's seeing the SOAR Corps participants graduate and get their children back, and seeing them living sober lives as a successful member of the community. That's amazing to me, and I just absolutely love it.
So I'm going to give you two examples. One in my current job would be very similar to what Jill was talking about. When I see parents who maybe have gone through divorces grow enough to be refocused again on their children, to kind of get over the hump of the heartache and what hurt them, and they come together and they start working towards being able to raise their kids in a co-equal way and in a way that is nourishing their kids, that is one thing. And then I work on the abuse, neglect, dependency court, so anytime we have a reunification, I always go back to the beginning of that file to understand how much these incredible humans have pushed and worked to get their family reunited. And I look at the resources and the people and personnel around, and I understand what it took to do that, and I'm so grateful in those times. But when I was in private practice, I had a moment that is probably one of my, it impacted me as one of the things that I did. And I want to tell you about it because it didn't ever get complete, but my role in it, what I was very proud of anyway. And that is the bar, that's the lawyers, all the lawyers all together, we form a bar, okay? It's a strange thing in that. And the bar has rules, sort of like judges have rules, lawyers have rules, and they should be the two different types of rules, legislator. There are bills out there, I hear. The lawyers don't have a clear discrimination code in their code of conduct. That means they have not a law that says, don't do this. And the answer to that is because the laws already say it. And my answer to that has always been, lawyers are held to a higher standard than just following the laws. If all we had to do was follow the laws, then all of y'all should be in the same boat, right? So I believe we have a slightly higher commitment to the oath of office and to laws and need to deal with it. And this thing came up about, and it was something that I've been involved in for almost 25 years, the thing called the preamble. And that's the beginning mission statement of the bar. And I wanted them to add in there that they would not discriminate based on gender or identity or orientation, and a slew of other abilities and means and other things that we thought were worthwhile. And a whole group across the state got together and we worked as a coalition, and we went over years and years, and the leaders of the bar one day agreed. And they were in the old Capitol, and we were there to put it on our terms, and we changed minds. And they voted yes. The reason it failed was because then there were not enough people on the Supreme Court willing to take the risk at that time to say yes. So we still don't have it. But I got to see the leaders of a male institutional conservative, and I mean that from a academic, scholastic way. It's not like politics. A conservative meaning lawyers are slow. Our Supreme Court has an owl on it because we believe laws should change slowly. They don't move, nothing changes. So if your system is in place and nothing ever changes and not everybody was involved at the beginning of the system, there's some challenges. So this was a huge moment for the state of North Carolina because it meant that the leadership of lawyers across the state were willing to look at this issue and willing to understand that they could have a lead role. It was very meaningful.
Thank you. We'll take a few more questions. In the back there.
Yeah.
Who were your role models through your journey to get here?
That's an easy one for me. Mary Colton was one of my strongest mentors. She was the first and only woman actually to serve as the Speaker pro tem in the House. And she was an elegant, well-spoken, smart woman to the very end.
Amen.
My older sister, just her strength, her resiliency, her honesty, her passion, helped me to be, I think, a giving and more, I guess, compassionate person that, again, I've been gifted with an opportunity and I need to capitalize on that by not just, again, trying to get a lot of titles, but actually trying to make a difference and have an impact on people's lives.
Well, I'd have to say Patsy Keever. She may not know this, but hers was the first campaign I ever worked on. And I was just so inspired by how hard she worked and how much she cared and how she made a difference in people's lives, first on the Board of Commissioners and then in the legislature and then in her race for Congress. And we'd be much better off if she's on that race.
Yeah.
I would have to say my mom. She's a strong woman, and she raised me to be a strong woman. And she also raised me, and she always instilled in me, you can do all things through Christ that strengthens you. So if I can do all things, that means whatever I put my mind to do, I can do just that. So my mom. I was gonna go with my parents too, so I'll just end with that.
More questions? I know there's, yes.
Why did you choose the job that you do now?
At some point at my age, I realized that I had a law license and was always going to be someone with a law license. And then I decided that I really wanted my children to stay in Asheville and Buncombe County. And then I realized that I wasn't quite the normal fit as a female rainmaker in a town with attorneys I loved, who maybe weren't as well able to receive the female rainmaker role that I realized I had. And so in looking around at opportunities, I actually had to make some decisions for my family. My husband's also a public servant, and we had to look around at opportunities, and I had to start thinking really clearly about how I was going to sustain my passion as well as my gifts and skill sets, and then the opportunity happened. So it was what was the door that was opened for me to become an assistant clerk of court first, and that was good. I had a lot of people telling me to be a judge, but I didn't have that confidence in myself. You can ask almost anyone in our district court judges situation that I have very low self-esteem. But I've worked on it. And what I realized is even with that, I can make a difference. So, by going as an assistant clerk of court for a whole year, about a year and a half even, I got to try cases as the primary hearing officer, and that gave me the confidence and the courage to know that I could do this job.
Smitty, would you mind just clarifying what you meant by rainmaker?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. So, yes, rainmaker is a fun term. It means that you are someone who maybe knows how to go out and get business and bring it into a firm. And so in lawyer speak, right, there's private firms or business, and business in general, some of the goals is to make money, to increase your clients who come through the door. Maybe you're, if you're in retail and you wanna like bring more people in, the question is, do you have someone on the top level of management who really knows how to bring in those new people, maybe bring in new clients, and will that be something that generates enough funds that other workers and employees can continue to grow their business and make them more prosperous, financially strong, wealthy, whatever. And so one of the things that you have as females is to look at some of your skill set. What used to be called gossiping may really be networking. What can be considered relationship building is now networking too. If you take away some of the terms you might be used to, you will find more gifts that you have that will make you very successful businesswomen.
And so I don't know that I ever decided to do this. What happened was, Patsy asked me, and so I did. And so I think that's a pattern for women. They don't think that they're capable like men do, at least in the same way men do. So I am here to ask you to consider running for office, because I'm here to tell you, you're very capable. And as a member of Little League's list, I learned that it takes, you ask a man if he wants to run for office, and he goes, yeah, why not me? But you ask a woman, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't think I'm qualified. So it takes 7 times to get a woman to run for office, so I want to be your first ask. I'm here to ask you all to consider running for office.
And I guess for me, I've been blessed and very fortunate to have 2 degrees. I have a degree in urban planning, and for 26 years I practiced planning. And then I have a master's in public administration, and I'm in that field now. So in Charlotte, I was an assistant city manager for 4 years, and then had the opportunity to come to Asheville, and I've been on this job for 5 months. So essentially, literally, most people don't get to actually do what they God's trying to tell me something that they major in. So most of my career, I've been able to link those two, my education and career.
For me, it was before, like I said, I just needed a different job, and but my passion came along when I saw I could make a difference in people's lives. Because law enforcement has a negative, that is bad right now, and to be that different person to, bring joy to somebody when, if you come into the courthouse and you ever see me, it's good morning, how are you? It's never, come on in. I'm never that way, because I'm always trying to make someone's day better. So if I can do that, then that's my passion, that's what I do.
All right, I would like to share with you where my passion comes from. Howard Thurman is a civil rights theologian, a person who is in the ministry, who practices his religion. And he had this important thing that just struck me. He says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what you need to be alive. Because what the world needs is for you to be alive. And I think that's some of the best possible advice we could give anybody. What makes me feel alive is being part of a political process that is out there to help other people. We're all in this together. We all do what we can. And what I can do, what I'm able to do is to run for office because I have the time and I have the energy and I don't have the responsibilities. I am not sick. And not everybody is in that position. I feel like I'm a very lucky person to be able to run for office and to be able to be a voice for everybody. So that's my passion. But what is your passion? What makes you feel alive? That's what you've got to figure out.
And I want to piggyback on that real quickly about, this is Women in Government panel. There are some public officials here. There's also people who are employees who have politics, because that's another thing that politics happens in your schools. Think about it, right? Politics happens in any workforce you have. Some of us are in more of the official political world, but politics happens with whatever business you're going to be involved in, whatever you do. Nonprofits, don't matter. If you can't run and don't want to run and be running back and up and down I-40 all the time, I'm holding up a boards and commissions list. And this is for the Girl Scouts, but it's also for the adults. The Women's Forum of North Carolina focuses on boards and commission appointments as opposed to elections, right? So you don't get campaigning through elections, you get appointments in a different manner. There are things called power boards, and they affect a lot of change in North Carolina as well. But there are also opportunities here that are specific, like if you're in a particular area of expertise, maybe it has to do with environmental things or engineering things, or maybe it has to do with massage things, maybe it's a health clinic. Those all have licensure boards, they have appointments, and they frequently need somebody. And all of you, I am thinking, have the first wonderful trait to tell Raleigh, I'm from the West, because your ability to travel makes you a good golden choice. And there are some student positions on boards and commissions, and you can volunteer to help people on boards and commissions. And I say that because they don't have quite the same time constraints sometimes. So this is another way to be active in your state, either as a volunteer or someone who gets stipends and other money, but it's also a way to get involved and get your feet wet. And one of the things I think is really important to understand is just put your toe in somewhere, and then let that passion and commitment kind of drive which stream's going to fit for you.
Thank you. We'll probably take one more question, and I think I'm going to take the flickering lights as a 2-minute warning here. But there'll be time to meet and greet with the panelists after this. So, go ahead.
Did you ever hit a point in your career where you were unmotivated, or you doubted yourself or your ability to make a change, help others? I'm sure that you have. How did you overcome that and push through that?
So I have, and I think that's why I'm actually in Asheville, because I had 30 years in Charlotte before coming here. What I do here in Asheville, when I hit that wall, where I just think God, if I have to talk to one more person who needs something out of the organization or of me personally, I'm fortunate enough, and most people are, to look out the window at those mountains. And I tell you, I don't know what it is, but I think it reinforces, it's not about you, and lots of people are trying to climb that mountain. So that's how I push them.
You know what I do is I talk to myself and pretend I'm somebody else. What would I say to another person if they came to me with this same problem? And I can always talk myself back into looking at the bigger picture, and it's not about me. I think that's really important. It's not about you so much as an individual. It's a much larger picture, and we're all part of it. And so go ahead and have your part and play your part, and have confidence in yourself.
My 2 children are my motivators. Yes, ma'am. They motivate me to go hard, to go strong, because I don't want them to have to go through the struggle that I had to go through. So when I hit that wall, I remember I got 2 girls that are looking at me I'm their example. I need to keep fighting. So that's why I do what I do.
So my answer is a little different. I hit a wall professionally and had to realize that I didn't quite fit. I have a brain that loves the law and I love history, and I have a brain that works fairly well, but I am a left-handed. I'm the only left-handed judge in our county. And that may sound weird, but organizationally that means I'm the one with the messy desk. So I've had to confront what I would say are differences that I like from a diversity perspective, but also confront that those are shortcomings in a lot of other people's eyes in terms of me pushing being the man, because the man is different in my body. But it's not about me, and I recognize I got gifts, and that if I could tweak from going out of a private practice where maybe the whole the bullet list of things I needed to do to excel in that is slightly different from what I do as a judge. As a family court judge, I have a lot of discretion, which means I have a lot of decisions I have to make, believing that I'm listening and doing what's best for the children. And taking it out of that realm, and honestly, this is part of that too. So when I went to law school, everyone told women what they could do because there weren't many women there, and you weren't. And I would go on interviews, and they would say, "Well, of course, since you're a woman, you're not going to practice criminal law. Of course, since you're a woman, you're not going to get into that nasty litigation stuff. Of course, you're a woman, so you're going to do family law, right?" So I ran far away from family law, and now I'm in it, and I love it. But I had to get over my opposition to being told what to do. So a lot of reflection, a lot of kind of understanding that just because that puzzle piece didn't fit over there, it doesn't mean it's not part of the puzzle. It just means I had it trying to cram it in the wrong shape for a really long time. And so I just took it out, pulled back, and put it in the right place.
And chocolate's been real helpful.
Well, there are Girl Scout cookies out in the lobby. Some of them are Thin Mints, and I've already had some of those.
Can I-
Chocolate.
Can I just say one thing? I'm a former member of our Girl Scout board here in the western part of the state. And you girls are amazing. Those are fabulous questions.
Yeah, we had some great questions. Thank you all for participating, and thank you so much to our panelists. Let's give them one more round of applause.